Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this special session today. We have with us a very special guest, Mr. Vinay Kamath, the Senior Associate Editor of the Hindu Business Line.
Hello, everyone.
Vinay comes with a glittering career in media and journalism. Prior to joining Business Line in 1998, Vinay was with TV18, leading the news bureau, after which he worked with a wide range of publications like the Financial Express, Business World, and the Economic Times. Vinay is also the author of the bestseller book, Titan, which takes us inside one of India's most successful consumer brands. This is definitely one of those fan moments for me. Lovely to have you here, Vinay.
Thank you, Abhishek.
I would also take this opportunity welcome Vikas, who is the co-founder of DigiGrad and Social Beat, an alumnus of the London School of Economics and one of India's top 40 under 40 digital leaders. Vikas is also the winner of the British Council UK Alumni Awards 2020 South Asia. I would now hand it over to Vinay and look forward to the nuggets of wisdom.
Thanks, Abhishek. And
Thank you, Abhishek. Yeah, thank you. So I would first like to clarify to all of, all those who have logged in, there are a lot of memes and lots of jokes about people don't wear pants during a Zoom call, but I would like to clarify to everybody that Vikas and I are wearing pants and we are not in a lungi or shorts.
And we are all wearing shirts as well. So
yeah, wearing shirts as well. Yeah, right. So I had to clarify that. So what now, Vikas, I'll request you to just speak for 7-8 minutes on digital marketing, maybe in a general way, not just in the time of this pandemic. And then we'll get down to specific questions and take it forward.
Perfect. No, thanks, Vinay, for putting this together with the Hindu Business Line, and pleasure to be here having a conversation with you. I think in terms of digital, I think we've seen a lot of change in the last few years. And I think we've really come a long way since Jio was launched. So I think at the moment, the latest figures that came out from IAMAI, the Mobile Association, is that we have close to about 565 million or about 56 crore internet users in India. And this is the first time that we have more rural Indian internet users in India than urban users. And that shift really started happening once Jio was launched about 2.5-3 years ago now. And I think we've seen so much shift happening there, right? From the rise of vernacular content, the rise of video itself. I think video has really expanded over the last 2-3 years. We're seeing a lot of consumption of video content. We're also seeing a lot of users coming online for the very, very first time. And that's why even voice search and voice overall is picking up, with a lot of searches happening on voice. People are trying to find answers on the internet by asking that question to their device. And that's again a lot of new elements that we're really seeing on the digital medium. And I think 2019 and 2020 have also been amazing years in the sense that there have been a lot of new platforms that have come on board on the digital spectrum. Be it the rise of Disney Plus, which is now Disney Plus Hotstar, be it TikTok, which has really taken India by storm over the last 1.5-2 years. And there are a whole host of other new platforms that are coming in, right from Firework to Hello to there's Bigo and there's Bigo. So there's so many new social media platforms who are trying to create a new culture of digital overall. And I think that's something that we really look to seeing how that will play out in the coming years. The other piece that's really exciting for us being in the digital space is that there's the penetration of internet in India is only about 35 to 40%. So even if you take into account the 56 crores that we spoke about, there's still almost 700 to 800 million people in India that don't have access to internet. And it's amazing that we're going to have almost 1 billion additional Indians who will get access to internet in the coming years. And to us, that's going to be really, really exciting to see how that's going to change businesses, how that's going to change marketing, and how that's going to change the way consumers interact with brands as well. And the last point I want to leave with before I hand it back to you, Vinay, is that we are seeing that finally even traditional businesses are adapting digital and digital marketing. For a long time, FMCG companies, retail companies, relied so much on traditional marketing channels, be it your newspapers, be it outdoor, be it using pamphlets, using activities at apartment complexes or other such activities, below the line activities. But I think they've all woken up to it saying digital has finally arrived. And that's why we are seeing a lot of that shift happening. And I think COVID has only added on that.
So would you say that for some small businesses, the first exposure to any media would actually be the digital medium?
Yes, increasingly so, yes, because you're able to personalize your communication, you're able to do it for the geography that you want, and you can customize and test your messages quickly. You can test a new offer, you can test a new communication, which is often not possible with many of the other channels. And the biggest benefit is that you can start even with a small budget of 5,000 rupees, which again may not be feasible with many of the other traditional marketing channels that exist. So even if you have 5,000-10,000 rupees, how do you really get started on digital? And that's why a lot of small businesses try out digital as a first medium of choice.
Right. So what's been happening to social beats during the pandemic? Are you getting a lot more inquiries about people wanting to advertise digitally, or not just advertise, but other campaigns and other stuff digitally?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vinay. I think, in fact, since mid-April till now, we've actually seen a surge in brands and companies trying to leverage digital. I think the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, brands and companies and organizations were still grappling with it. But I think by mid-April, people had realized that this is here to stay. This is going to be here for some time. And how do we start adapting our business models? How do we start leveraging digital? So we've really seen a lot of surge. But obviously, there are some industries that we are not seeing any traction at all, be it industries which are more into manufacturing, traditional offline retail. So I think there are some industries that obviously have not been able to really change that. But I think most other industries are trying to say, okay, what can I do right now? How can I create engaging content? How can I continue being relevant to my consumers? How do I, if my business was completely offline, how do I now start taking some of that online? How do I get some customers online and move that entire customer journey online? So that's really that shift is happening. And, we as a team are doing a lot. I think we're trying to learn a lot during this period. And I think that's what's keeping us busy.
Right. Just an offshoot, not really related to digital marketing, but something you had mentioned that, with more of work from home practices happening, and you'll find that a lot more people are giving up office space and the whole paradigm is going to change. So you were saying that even Social Beat is looking at giving up a lot of office space and moving it to work from home.
Absolutely. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, that new normal is here to stay. In fact, I was listening to the same discussion that you were watching as well of Mr. C.K. Ranganathan of Kevin Care, that they have given away their entire corporate office. And I think that's a pretty bold move from a company to say, I don't need a permanent office space at all. I will take the space when I need it for the specific work. I think we haven't taken such a drastic step, but we have reduced the amount of space we have across all our cities with the focus that over the next 9 to 12 months, we may not require the entire space. And we took that call as early as end of March. So we said, let's move towards that. And we were already seeing global trends towards that. And I think because we have a young workforce, it's been easy to adapt. But that being said, it's not easy to collaborate. It's not easy to connect with people digitally, right? There are some restrictions to it. While you and I are having a great conversation right now, the connection that you would have sitting across the table is obviously not something you can replace.
Yeah. Right. So that's going to be a double whammy for the real estate sector, I guess.
Absolutely, especially the commercial real estate.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then moving on to subject at hand today. Um, so, in conventional marketing, you have the 4 Ps of marketing, and then you have even the 7 Ps of marketing, and traditional marketers actually follow that. So how would you encapsulate digital marketing principles in something like that, which is there something like a 4 Ps of marketing for digital?
No, I think it's a great question. I think marketing and storytelling has not changed. I think the basics of it still relatively remain the same. I think just the execution of that has changed. Where do you place that product, right? Where is the what kind of pricing you need, what kind of promotions you need? I think the 4 Ps and the 7 Ps still hold good even in the digital ecosystem, but I think the customer journey towards those Ps has changed. So, for example, when you look at place, let's look at place, which is one of the Ps that is there. Traditionally, it's been the offline retail space, right, where you go buy, or it could be a shop or a kiosk, or it could be where you really buy the product. But that's changing. Today, the Google screen is also a place. Today, your mobile phone and the app that you have on it is also a place. And I think that's really what's fundamentally changing many of these paradigm shifts. While 7Ps still hold good, but each of them will have a digital ramification or a digital version of it that will be very, very different. So even promotions, for example, promotions in the traditional marketing were very, very different. You did one-to-many communication. Today, we do almost one-to-one communication. And that's what's changed. So you still need to do communication and promotions, but you do it in such a more personalized manner that was not possible in the previous sort of theories that were out there. So I think the 7Ps still hold good. It's not something we need to really relook at this stage.
Right. So that's interesting because, Starbucks always used to say that we are the other place. So you have the office, you have the home, and we are the other place where you congregate for your coffee, your get-togethers and all that. So now I think the office space is going to get knocked out of that equation. You're going to have your home, and the other space is going to be the computer screen.
Absolutely, yeah. And your primary space is going to be a home, which is good for any brand that is supplying products which are useful at home. So
yeah. So there was a question from Umar Shankar where he says, if I may ask, how has the media industry, especially print, dealt with COVID, and how are you using digital marketing at this point in time? So that's a great question, Umar Shankar, because it's been a double whammy for the print media, because on one hand you've had declining numbers in circulation because many places were not printing. Many resident association, very unfounded fear that the newspaper is a carrier of the corona, which is completely unfounded, and so they've stopped getting the newspapers. So consequently, in fact, none of the newspapers are printing in Bombay, which is a very big center. Even the Times of India is not printing in Bombay. The Business Time not printing. The Hindu is not printing. And it's a completely unfounded fear. But consequence of that, you had circulation revenues decline. And subsequent to that, of course, you have seen a fall in advertising revenues. So that's a classic double whammy for the print media. And my digital head of the Hindu, Pradeep Gairola, was saying that at least 50% of digital advertising is from small businesses who probably don't have the wherewithal to come back strongly like large businesses. So unless they come back, and only then we will see a spurt in digital advertising on our sites. Though ironically, readership is soaring because of everybody's looking at websites for the news consumption, and the numbers are soaring and a lot more readers are coming on. But the consequence of that is not translating into more advertising for now. Maybe in the long run that would help. Right. So because there are a whole lot of questions for you. So that's actually a question from our digital head, Pradeep. We ask currently most of digital marketing spends are towards performance-led campaigns. The order is something like TV for branding, newspapers for impact, and digital for performance. So do you see this changing post-COVID? and some serious branding money shifting to digital, or digital is still going to be led by ROI-led spends?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think traditionally digital has been more for what we would call bottom of the funnel, or for finally converting that customer. But I think that shift had already started 2, 3 years ago. Uh, but that shift is definitely going to change now. And in fact, from whatever discussions we've been having with brands as well, in fact, the same discussion about Kevin Care as well, they said that the digital spends till date have only been 5% of their overall marketing spends, and they're going to shift it from 5% to 40%, right?
Wow.
And I think, and that's going to happen across companies, small businesses, large businesses. They're going to shift both their branding budgets as well as all the promotional budgets that they have towards digital as well. It's not that other channels are going to die. I think print is definitely here to stay, television is definitely here to stay, but the mix will definitely change. The mix will tilt more towards digital, and that's already starting to happen even in the US. In fact, for the first time in 2019 in the US, the digital marketing investments were larger than any other medium, right? Larger than television, larger than outdoor and print. And I think that shift will happen in India possibly in 2021, not 2020, but 2021. Definitely, that shift is going to happen. And we're already seeing that shift, be it with YouTube, be it with Hotstar, even newspapers like the Business Line. Brands are using it as a mass medium to reach everybody, to build that awareness, to build their brand campaigns and build their engagement. And that's definitely here to stay and going to happen.
Actually, here I would like to observe that, in the US, strong brands like the New York Times actually don't depend on advertising revenues for the digital spends, because I feel a lot of people are actually, putting ad stopper and not actually seeing advertising on digital.
Right.
So they're actually, all of them have installed a paywall, and New York Times is making a lot of revenue out of subscription monies.
Absolutely, yeah.
So actually, they're now a very profitable organization, digitally, even though they don't rely on digital advertising spend. That's a very interesting trend. But here in India, unfortunately, everybody thinks news is free, so not many want to pay for news on the web. But I think post-COVID, the transformation may come.
Correct. I think the e-papers are starting to pick up in that direction. Yes.
Right. There's one more question from Pradeep. He asked, where, with third-party cookies going away, do you see established media brands getting a larger share of the advertising?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a valid point again. I think Google and Chrome have announced that third-party cookies will not be allowed on the browser, but they still gave it time. I think there is still 1.5 years to go for that to actually come into effect. So I think there are two things that I would comment there. One is definitely anyone who has first-party data or has the user base is definitely going to benefit. So be it the media houses, be it any large internet brand, be it, for example, like a MakeMyTrip or a Flipkart, or any brand that has first-party data of users, even including the Hindu, for example. Wherever you have first-party cookie and first-party user base, those entities are definitely going to benefit from that change that's going to come in 2022. The second part of that is you're going to see a lot of brands actually invest in direct-to-consumer campaigns. And I think that's starting to happen. Coca-Cola has already announced that they're going to be doing most of the marketing this year on direct-to-consumer, right? They want to directly advertise, directly have personalized communications, and directly sell to consumers as well. And that shift is starting to happen across brands. And we are talking to many FMCG brands as well who want to see how do you get in touch with that customer directly, even traditional brands. And I think that shift is as a precursor to that cookie data going away, because then your ability to reach that right user starts to diminish, which is why you need to have your own user base and your own customer base to go after them.
Right. So here's a question from Chitra Narayanan, who's our who edits our branding and marketing and advertising section. So she asked, because traditional marketers, like the guys who grown up in the 80s and 90s, they're very confused on what platforms and what technology and solutions to embrace. So our digital solution kind of custom built?
Yeah, I think no, it's true. In fact, this is something we were discussing also with, for example, with Google, that their product today currently is pretty complex, right? Like if someone needs to go in and log in and start using it, it's not actually possible. You can't just log in and use it. It requires a lot of learning. It requires you to understand what's happening. And I think, that shift is starting to happen. In fact, Facebook was the first platform that came and said, let's make it easy, right? Anybody should be able to come and say, this is my business, this is the message I want to show, and I want to show it to people, for example, in Chennai, who live near, Paris Corner, and talk to them about the restaurant that I have in Paris Corner, right? It needs to be that easy. It should be as easy as saying, I want to communicate to these people, and this is what I want to communicate. Uh, and I think it's coming there. It's still probably, I would say, 1 to 2 years away, where it's literally plug and play. It's as easy as saying, this is what I want, give it to me. But there's always a dichotomy, right? Because there are those experienced advertisers and experienced brands who want a lot of functionality, a lot of features. And at the other spectrum, you have people who want it simple. So they are trying to see how to bridge both those spectrums and still make something meaningful for brands and advertisers. But at the moment, the ecosystem is complex. It is a lot of things happening. There are new social media platforms coming, like I said. Where do you even choose, right? Today, there are almost 20 social media platforms in India. Which one do I choose? And I think it's not an easy decision. But I think in the next 1.5 to 2 years, we will see some of that consolidating, some of that becoming simpler to use, so that it's easier on smaller businesses.
Right. So in one of earlier conversations, you talked about a full funnel digital marketing strategy. I'm sure the marketers here logged in would be curious to know how that plays out. Could you just quickly explain how it operates?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the full funnel approach is an approach that's been there in marketing before as well, where you look at the first level, it's almost like a inverted triangle, where you look at, the brand awareness at the top, and then you have consideration in the center, and then you have sort of the customers at the bottom end who come down, right? Almost like a funnel that you can imagine. And that's been there for traditional marketing as well. You always have brand awareness campaigns that are on television, for example, or outdoor. And then you start building consideration. You have, for example, newspaper inserts, you have newspaper ads, or you have promotions that happen in localities. And finally, you have consideration, the conversion, which is your final sale. You say, I have a sale happening for Diwali, come and buy from me. That awareness, consideration, and conversion has been there for a long time. But as you pointed out in the earlier question, digital was predominantly used only for the last part, which is conversion or performance. And it was not being used for awareness and consideration. But that's changing now. And what we're really saying is you should be able to use the entire marketing funnel on digital as well. So for example, for brand awareness, you could actually run a YouTube campaign that reaches everyone in Chennai, right? Yeah. The second step could be, how do I create amazing content that can engage with them? Let's say I can have webinars like these. I can have, content which is there on my website or blog. I can create shorter videos that help people, consume something. And finally, then I have offers which are there for them. So when they want to really purchase it, then I have an offer, then I have a sale, and then I take them to my website and convert them. So that entire journey can be tracked, and the power of digital is such that I can track people at each level. So I can actually see that I want, these people to see all 3 steps, right? I want to show them my awareness campaign, I want to show them my blog, and then I want to show them my offer. And I can show it in that sequence to that same individual. And that's really the power of digital, because the full funnel then works seamlessly across channels and across the entire digital ecosystem, making it even more powerful than the funnel that existed in traditional marketing.
And it can be individualized.
It can be personalized, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can obviously personalize to say, I want to do it for Vinay Kama, but I can do it to say that Vinay Kama should see message 1, message 2, message 3 in that sequence and in these channels.
Right, very interesting. That's the power of digital.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's an interesting question from Shekhar where he says, customer experience is utmost experience for uh, customer experience is the utmost for retail. How will a brand be able to provide that in a digital ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's a big question of this year. I think during the COVID times, I was in fact listening to the founders of CureFit, which run the popular chain of gyms and fitness centers. And you can imagine that gyms and fitness centers are probably the worst impacted because no one's going to walk in and work out in the same place as 50 other people have worked out in the last 1 hour, right? It's just a challenging situation when you look at COVID. And they're really trying to reinvent that wheel, right? They're like, how do we create that experience? How do we create a digital experience? And at the same time, how do we create an offline experience at the house of the consumer? And I think that's how a lot of that is going to change. A lot of that retail experience will become hybrid in nature. It will be partially digital, partially at someone's home, and partially at the retail store. And I think that is still yet to unravel. I don't think we have all the answers yet. But I think that experience is going to be fragmented between multiple channels and touch points. In fact, I ordered some food from Swiggy the other day, and I got this really nice note that the restaurant had sent saying, your food was cooked by person X, your food was packed by person Y, and person Z actually checked whether the temperature was fine of the individual, of the person, the temperature of the person, whether they were using protective gear, and whether everything in the entire place is sanitized. And I was really happy to see that because they're still providing a quality service, but remotely me sitting at home, right? I'm getting great food, delicious food, but which is also safe, which is also something that tells me that these restaurants care for me and care for the food that they're making. So I think there will be things that will change. Are you going to be sitting in a restaurant with a mask and eating? No, because you cannot eat with a mask on, right? So, it's going to be challenging to see how these industries evolve, but there will be definitely a lot of stuff happening digitally. And wherever it's not possible, it will happen at home of the consumer.
Right. That's interesting. So that's some reassurance you got from that restaurant.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right,
I was happy to see that reassurance.
Right. Yeah. No, given the times, I think that's most important.
Yes.
Right. There's a question from Natasha, which says, ask what are the key digital marketing trends we will see post-COVID?
Yeah, I think that's something we've been trying to unravel with our clients and with the platforms and publishers as well. I think one key trend is definitely e-commerce and digital first businesses. Any business that's who's been traditionally offline, they will need to find a way to bring in the digital leg or digital arm or completely move to e-commerce if it's possible, because that is going to be critical. So that's one key trend that we're definitely foreseeing. The second trend we are seeing is that a lot of the vernacular content was obviously growing, but I think the pace at which that will grow now is going to be phenomenally higher. Because we're seeing everyone's online, right? Everyone's trying to order groceries online. So a lot of those shifts are phenomenal. In fact, we were just speaking to the Google team. The searches for grocery search, like grocery online, has grown by 350% in the last 3-4 weeks. And that just means that if that becomes a habit over the next 6 months, then that becomes the new normal, right? So we're going to see a lot of shift happening in vernacular as well, which is going to accelerate a lot more in the coming 6 to 9 months, 12 months. And the final trend we're really foreseeing is on the digital payment side. With cash on delivery completely eliminated by all the players at the moment, because collecting cash in this situation has become a challenge for them, and to maintain that cash, because many of these people are not reporting back to headquarters because of these challenges. So I think overall managing cash is going to become a challenge. So there's going to be a huge thrust on digital payments that is going to transform many other businesses as well. So I think those will be the 3 broad trends that we really foresee.
One unfortunate fallout of this pandemic is that, whether it's digital branding or physical branding, I think it's all gone out of the window. I mean, just a matter of who's there at at your local kirana store, which brand is present, and you just grab it. I mean, there's no brand loyalty or there's no brand pull. Or I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out after things get back to normal. Whether brands can again get back to what they were doing earlier.
Absolutely. I think that's very true, Vinay. I think you get what you get, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But it gives a chance and an opportunity for consumers to try a new product.
Yes.
Which may or may not work for the brand, but if it works for the brand, then it definitely will benefit them in the coming months.
Yeah. Also a great opportunity for brands and, in the health and hygiene space to actually, try out their brands in this market. They'll probably find a good space for themselves.
Correct. Anything to do with health. Yeah. And I think there's going to be a health and hygiene factor for every industry as well. So that's also going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. So there's a question from Varun Pandey. He asked whether, marketing budgets of many companies have been slashed by quite a bit this year. But won't digital marketing actually be impacted by this? But I think in some senses you answered that earlier.
Yeah, I think marketing budgets are slashed, but whatever marketing budget is left will actually come first to digital, which is why we are saying that it will actually pick up. And the second reason is a lot of traditional advertisers who relied more on television or relied more on print will start taking digital more seriously now. And that's why digital will probably still continue to grow, but maybe not in this quarter. So the April to June quarter, definitely we are seeing there's going to be a dip. But post July, where we are, expecting a lot of it to go to digital.
Right. So this is quite a plaintive cry from an Abhinav saying, how can a digital marketing freelancer survive through the current situation? I don't know what advice you can give him.
I think actually what we are actually noticing is that freelancers might be in a good position, but again, not in the immediate short term. I think till June, July, things are going to be tough. You need to conserve your cash and live as frugally to survive the tough times. But post that, I think because there's work from home, because a lot of people are going to rely on temporary employees rather than full-time employees, I think that shift towards freelancers actually might benefit you. We're already seeing a lot of companies laying off employees, unfortunately. And that only means that a lot of part-time workers or the gig workers, as we call them, might actually benefit from that, but not in the short term. In the midterm, you will actually get more work as long as you continue to skill yourself and upskill yourself. But next 3-4 months are going to be tough. So, hold on till you can.
Right.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay. I hope Abhinav is listening in.
Yes.
There's a question from Satpati where he says, what are the new tools you would absolutely recommend to new age marketers?
Yeah, there are lots of them. So I think it comes down to tools for what. I think 3 or 4 tools that I can tell you, which makes sense for every scenario. Number one is definitely Google Analytics. It's a free tool that gives you a quick sense of what's happening to your audience, to your visitors on your website. The second would be from a social media perspective. There are 3-4 of them, in fact. There's Buffer and Hootsuite. You can try any of them. So from a social media perspective and managing your social media channels, those would be good tools. And finally, from a content perspective and seeing how do you get traffic from Google, the entire search engine piece, we would recommend a tool called Moz, M-O-Z. Moz is a great tool. So, but I think there are many, many tools, but these would be the top ones that you should try out.
Right. Here's a question from Tara Thomas, where she says, how can brands be more sensitive online at this time and after? What are the emotions the audience may be feeling and how will they factor that into their messaging?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we've actually done a complete session of this. We'll add a link to the YouTube video later so you can actually check it out. But I think, as you're rightly saying, the consumer today is going through so much. There's so much uncertainty of whether they can even open their shops, open their offices, uncertainty of whether you can call your maid next week or not, uncertainty of, can I pay my salaries at the end of the month because I don't have cash? There's so much negativity and uncertainty. And of course, a lot of the news itself is very worrisome, right? You look at the news and you're like, hey,
Absolutely.
This is getting worse. Yeah. It's not getting better. It's actually getting worse every day. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So we're only recommending two things to brands. One is you need to be empathetic to these consumers. And two is you need to stay relevant, right? And stay positive. So empathy and staying relevant and positive are the two broad things that we're telling them. And as long as you can, make sure that you're not overtly selling your product or overtly selling your services and making sure you're adding value to the consumers in whatever way, that's really the way forward to keep adapting. But each week is different. Each week is new. I think every time the government changes any policy, you need to relook at what you're communicating because things change rapidly. So that's something, keeps us on our toes as well.
Right. In a similar vein, Nitin asks, one of the main issues that he works for a digital agency and say they've been facing lately is how to approach sensitive messaging regarding the pandemic. We have received requests from clients to add COVID-sensitive tonality in a lot of communication and range of products. But it can't be right for all products, So some products, they absolutely bear probably no relevance to what's going on. So, but clients want to show solidarity while promoting the product. So is there a way to incorporate this messaging in digital collateral without running the risk of sounding opportunistic?
Yeah, it's a fine balance. I think it's not easy to find the balance. Just to give you an example, we work with a jewelry retailer, right? And they had the same request saying, how do we make sure we take in the context of COVID for our industry? And it's not easy because jewelry has nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah.
But I think what we really realized is that a lot of people everyone's at home. And one thing we can actually do with them is how do you help them clean their jewelry or maintain their jewelry during this time? And they also need an activity to do. They need something to keep them busy. So that's the route we finally took, saying, how do we talk to them about how do you clean something? How do you clean silver? How do you clean gold? How do you clean things that are delicate? How do you, what are the things that you can use and things you cannot use? So, and that's obviously, you need to find the context, but not sell yourself. And I think that balance is something you need to constantly look at.
Yeah, don't be in your face.
Don't be in your face, absolutely, yeah.
Right. So did that campaign gain a lot of traction?
It did. It was actually a good, it got a good campaign. And I think we're trying to see how to extend that piece and see how to get more traction for that. And that's the context you need to continuously look at. For example, we work with a conglomerate based out of Chennai, and they wanted to find a way to engage users. So we said, okay, what do we do? So we looked at crosswords, we looked at puzzles, we looked at things that are interesting for people to do, but still brought in some essence of what the company does. It's not a blatant sell, but it gives them something fun to do in their free time. And that's really what, that's what we would recommend for everyone as well.
Right. Again, the question from Tara Thomas, where she asks, what kind of specific technologies and platforms should brands look to invest to widen the reach online? But of course, I think you answered that where you said there are lots of tools which marketers can adopt, right?
Correct, absolutely. There are too many tools. I think we can maybe leave a link again in the video later for others to take it out, and that should help hopefully.
Yeah, I think that will be very useful to do that. Yeah. I think there have been a spate of questions coming in. Abhishek, you want to read through them?
Yeah, I have them as well. I can probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's come on the chat, right?
Yeah, I think Shiva has a question on, due to the pandemic, there's a sudden spike with tools like Zoom, WebEx, and others. Can meetings like pre-COVID come back anytime soon? It's anybody's guess. I think how long is this going to last? Personally, I think as a company, I think we are quite prepared to be the way we are working from home over the next 6 to 9 months. I think from when we talk to health experts, I think definitely a 12-month period is a safe bet to look at when it comes to whether when we can finally say we are post-COVID. So I think definitely it will come back to the pre-COVID normal, but not in the next 12 months in my view, but maybe Vinay has some thoughts on this too.
No, what experts are saying is, I think Corona is here to stay, probably be mutating in various avatars.
Correct.
And so one thought is, till the community gets herd immunity, then it won't go away. I mean, people keep falling ill. But if there's certain critical mass which gets herd immunity, then it's time for it will peter out. But it looks like there's a lot of hope on the horizon, because that's an Israeli company, then there's research at Oxford, and now an Italian company has said we have found antibodies which can suppress the virus. So I think people are going all out to try and find a cure to this, and I guess humanity will find a way sooner or later.
To come together, yeah. Absolutely. Krishna has a technical question, but maybe I'll take it. His question is, from a search engine optimization perspective, there are multiple options and tools like Ahrefs, Moz, and SEMrush. Which one would you recommend? I think it depends on what you're looking at. I think in our view, Moz is, which I mentioned earlier, Moz is probably a tool which encompasses everything. But actually, we use all three tools. We use SEMrush predominantly to look at their entire on-page grader. So they have a very strong tool which looks at what are the errors on the website, what are the things you need to fix to rank well. So I think we use SEMrush predominantly for that. And SEMrush also has great features for analyzing competitor landscape to understand what our competitors doing, what are the kind of communication they have. And Ahrefs is very, very strong when it comes to backlinks. So if you want to analyze backlinks and understand how that's going, actually Ahrefs is the best. So it really depends on which tool you want and for what purpose. If you want one tool, I think Moz would be the pick, but otherwise use these collectively as well, if that makes sense. Muskan has a question here on what are the skills that an aspiring digital marketer can build to get industry ready. Great question, Muskan. I think what we've typically seen in the digital space is that there are a couple of broad skill sets, right? One broad skill set that we see a lot of people requiring is the creative skill set. You being able to write creatively, you being able to look at social media and coming up with creative ideas of what you could do there. So if you are creative, I think that's one big skill set that can really be useful. The second is being analytical. How do you look at consumer targeting? How do you look at digital Google Analytics that I mentioned earlier? So there's a lot of analysis that can happen on the digital medium. And those are the kind of skill sets that can be more analytical. And the third and final is, skill sets which come from a broader marketing perspective itself, which is more the big thinking, the business mindset, which can really help as well. And I think that's actually why we started DigiGrad, to be able to skill people around this space. So please do check that out if you want to. All right, so then we have a question on Bhakti has a question which is again interesting, I think. Empathetic campaigns may offer brand recall value, but not offer any return on investment quantitatively. Is that the reason most brands are losing hope and thus pausing all digital spends? Not really. I think you're right in saying that any campaign that is more towards the brand will not yield to immediate result, which is true for any brand campaign. But if you look at the journey of a consumer, it's never that it's always transactional, and the emotional connect with the brand has never been more important, right? It's even more important for you to create that trust between you as a consumer and the brand. And that's why, it's important to keep that engagement going, to keep that conversation going, to give you the example of the restaurant that I ordered from, I think they're still trying to find an empathetic way of connecting with me, even though it may not necessarily mean that they're going to get an order from me tomorrow again, right? But they're still trying to connect, keep that engagement going. And I think that's really important. Even for the jewelry example I gave, it's not that tomorrow they're going to shop from that brand, but they will remember that brand because the brand helped them when they needed it most. I think Supraja has a question on how can brands effectively do how can brands effectively do right now to make the consumers recall and remember the brand name after the situation becomes quite normal. I think we partly covered this, that it's important to remain empathetic, to remain positive, and obviously stay relevant to the COVID situation. And that's how you're going to keep that communication going and brand engagement going. But as we were discussing, the normal is going to be some time away. It's at least 12 months away. So you need to make sure that you are relevant during COVID, not post-COVID. I think post-COVID is still some time to come.
Yeah.
But how do you stay relevant during COVID is absolutely essential. And that's what we're telling brands. It's no longer to say, okay, things will get normal after the lockdown. It will not. And I think that's something all of us need to accept and adapt our business models, adapt the way we work, adapt our thinking so that we're ready for the long haul for this virus, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality of the virus.
No, definitely it won't be life as usual, even if the COVID peters out. It's going to take some time, actually.
Absolutely. Your holidays are going to be in question. Your going out for restaurants are going to be in question. Your marriages and any get-togethers you do, birthday parties.
Your gyms. And
anything you thought was normal is no longer normal.
Not going to be normal, yeah.
Which means, you need to really relook at what can you do now that can be engaging for brand and the consumer. I think Meenal has a question which we partly covered, which is consumers are looking for affirmations, trust, reliability. So how can brands approach this period of uncertainty? You're absolutely right that consumers want the positive affirmation, and which is why we are recommending brands not to take a negative tone in any form. Even insurance companies that we're working with, they're saying don't take the negative tone, because in the past, you might still have taken a negative tone. But today, there is enough and more negativity around us that we need to have a positive stand. And even as a company, as a brand, even the clients that we work with, I think that's definitely a baseline. You have to have a positive communication that really engages with the audience. And that's the only way to connect. Because if you're going to create more fear or more uncertainty in the brand, that's only going to add to the challenges. And that's why you should be able to also communicate your consumers as often and as appropriately as you can. Is your shop open? Are you open to service? Are you open to, take customers in? Are you able to fix small things that are possible? And I think being able to communicate to your loyal customers is also going to be key. In fact, that's a recommendation we're giving a lot of smaller retailers as well, is that you already have contact numbers of all your customers. Call them up, speak to them, understand, is there something that you can deliver home? Is there something, if you are offering a product which will require service, can you service that product right now at home, right? Give protective gear to your service people. So there are so many things you can do and communicate during this period that that's what we would recommend most brands to look at. Devesh has a question on the travel industry. How does an organization in the travel and tourism industry manage its brand positioning during this situation and post? Great question. I think travel is badly hit. I think especially if you're focused on international and global travel, then you have a tough 1.5 years ahead. And what we are recommending really, at least for the travel space, is focus on domestic, because domestic travel is likely to still pick up a little bit of pace in the next 4 to 5 months. People still will need to take vacations, but they'll probably take vacations closer to home. But they are still going to take vacations. It's not that people are going to stop holidaying. They will go to places that are closer, and that's what's going to happen. In fact, Australia launched a campaign called See Australia First. And that's a campaign that they're trying to say, hey, we are promoting people to come locally, and people in Australia come and see Australia, and that's something even India is going to definitely do. Tourism industry to actually make that happen, and that's how it's going to work for the travel industry. But maybe Vinay, you want to add something on the travel piece? You have a perspective.
Yeah, I think domestic travel will be more need-based, whereas I think when people have to travel abroad for leisure, I don't think that's going to happen. The other matter of concern is what happens to all those students who have to travel abroad. It's going to be a huge concern, whether they can travel at all and whether it's safe for them, and whether the universities will hold the admissions for them. I think that's another huge matter of concern. So I think it's going to be a lot of uncertainty ahead.
Correct, yeah.
Involving travel. Domestic travel, like you say, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more need-based, families having to travel, people stuck somewhere. But I think optional leisure travel abroad is going to take a big hit.
No, absolutely. That's very true. I think all the global students going to study abroad, I think it's a challenging year for them. Yeah. In fact, even for the students in this year itself, I think many of them are complaining that, they've already paid the fees, but they're sitting at in their dorm rooms and learning, which is obviously a huge challenge for them.
Might as well sat in India and done that.
Exactly. And I think that's a challenge for all those universities overall across the world. I think we have a question from Chitra on influencer marketing. We have seen a whole rethink on the influencer marketing piece during COVID. Celebrities are not ringing true, even as consumers identify with the stories, with moms. So I think the broader question is, things are changing in the influencer marketing space. What do you look at? What can you really look at doing? I think that's really what. I think there's so much that's changing. As you said, celebrities, even non-celebrities, it is definitely changing a lot. And I think because you cannot create content today, because you cannot produce, the directors, actors are not available, but content is today being created using influencers. And that is definitely growing massively across the board. I think that's the questions we had, Vinay. Anything that you would like to add on?
Yeah, I was just curious, because, I know you come from a traditional branding and marketing background. You work for TI Cycles, and then you decided to take the plunge into social media. So was there a process of self-learning? Because I don't think there was anybody to actually show you the way, how to get into social media and how to become a digital media expert. So was that a process of self-discovery, self-learning? I mean, it's just a very, very personal question, which I'm sure our viewers also will be interested in.
No, definitely. That's a great question. I think it's true that I had to learn it myself. In fact, when we started doing digital, it was actually 2010, in fact, when social media and Facebook and others were actually not very large. So we actually learned it in the process. And I had a great set of leaders and managers at my end in the companies that I worked with that really helped that to happen. And I think that's what's, as you're rightly saying, it is a lot of self-learning that's happening, which really made that success happen.
Right. So I think you're the right man at the right place now.
To some extent, yes.
Yeah. With the, the digital piece gaining more currency. So I think, I should say you're in a sweet spot.
Correct. Absolutely. No, that's true. I think very true.
Right. Yeah. So are there any more questions, Abhishek, or should we come to a close because it's going to be 5 o'clock? There's a question from Narayanan, I think I can see that.
Yeah.
Can you see that question from Narayanan?
Yeah. Skill development organizations which focus on underprivileged, low middle class students might not have a strong infrastructure or device. How can we reach out to them digitally? Yeah, it's valid. And I think it's important to really look at what else we can do to bridge that digital divide as we all know it, both from a hardware perspective, from a spectrum and internet perspective as well. But I think, you're right that it is going to be challenging. But which is why we are saying that only 56 crore Indians have access to internet. There are a lot more that will get it. We have to wait for that to happen. And if we can contribute in some way, I think a lot of the larger companies are working on that, right from Microsoft to Dell to Googles of the world. And that bridge will happen, but maybe not overnight.
Right. So thank you, Vikas. I think it was a very illuminating talk by you. And I also found it very interesting. Lots of new learnings for me as well.
Thank you, Vinay. Thanks for getting this together. And thank you for hosting it.
Yeah, I think it was a great conversation, and I hope our viewers all benefited from it. And we had a great set of questions also.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for your participation. And I'm sure this must have been a very illuminating talk by Vikas. So stay safe,
Thanks a lot,
stay
Vinay
healthy,
and
everybody.
Vikas, for this highly insightful session for us all.
Yeah. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vinay and Abhishek.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Abhishek. Bye-bye.